You can hear the stories of those who attended Indianapolis public schools dating all the way back to the 1920s in a new digital collection of oral history, the Indianapolis Public Schools Families Talk Oral History Project, found on the library's website at ndpl.org. The organizer, creator, and interviewer for this project is Josefa Beyer, a local journalist who I know has spent a lot of time over the past few years organizing and actually collecting the interviews. This is an exciting project. We're glad to have it part of the library's digital collection. Tell us how this all began and what people will find.
Well, it started in 2012. I created it, I had been a journalist, a writer, covering education, and I was also an IPS parent. I even ran for school board, which I mentioned because when I was out there on the school board trail, the campaign trail, I thought, well, I have a lot to offer, and I'm a parent, and I'm a writer. And then I met these other parents, and I met these grandparents raising grandchildren, and I was floored and really humbled. You have 3 generations in IPS. You have 3 generations of knowledge about school and our city. You know, I'm a neophyte, and I was the happiest loser ever. I went back to Martin Luther King Community Center to start the oral history, meeting women in kinship care. So we had a support group, and they allowed me to interview them, and they told me what it was like when they were a kid, and what it was like raising children and grandchildren. And it really launched the idea of going around the city and meeting people of all different ages, all different communities, till I got to the point where there's close to 200 narrators represented. So the oldest is 94, the youngest is 15.
And these go back to people who attended schools in the 1920s, some of the oldest ones.
Yes.
And there are more to come. There are some that are found on the Families Talk site on the library's webpage.
Right.
But there's going to be more added in 2016, correct?
Right. Right now, if you go to the archive, I think it's 167 files, part transcript, like full transcripts of everything these people said, and it represents around 100 narrators. Again, ranging a big range. So right now you can get their transcripts and most of their audio. So really need to be able to hear it in their voices, especially if I made typos. I want you to hear it from them.
That's right.
Their beautiful voices.
When I started work at RCA, they had a program from Tech High School for anybody that wanted to finish high school. I started it, but I didn't finish it. And I wished I had, but when I found out I was going to get a ride back and forth to RCA on my transportation, I stopped going because I wanted to catch a ride home in the evening. This lady was, at that time I lived at 13th Cornell, and the highway had come through. All the houses was torn down in that area.
This is a great complement to what people also will find on the library's website in the way of IPS yearbooks that go way back. So there's a lot of history about Indianapolis Public Schools. Josefa, tell us about how the art of getting people to open up and tell their stories and what you were faced with as the interviewer.
Oh, well, I would say there is an art, but the honor was all mine. To be having somebody who would sit down and tell me anything about them, it would just grow. The hour would go by, and I will say sometimes 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours. I think the greatest thing that you can do when you sit down to talk with anybody is to listen and hold your tongue and reserve judgment. And then that person that's in front of you, whether they're way older than you, way younger, different background, different community, you will start to connect with them and see what you have in common, and also respect where they're coming from. It's a great experience.
What would you say is, as far as what you've learned and what you can say about not only what's interesting to you, but why this collection is important? What is it that people can take from this to learn about the history of IPS?
The bottom line importance is listening. Listen to the people in the schools. Public schools belong to the people who are in them. And if you listen and respect them and respect their total lives, your education is going to be more profound.
Again, the Families Talk oral history can be found at the Indy Library Digital Collections site at indypl.org, but you have your own Facebook site that people can even find more detail, correct?
Right, I'll be posting on Facebook, Families Talk Oral History, and I'm trying to put little snippets out there so people begin to understand how great these people are, how great these narrators are, and how much they can tell us.
This won't be the end of the project either. You still have some holes to fill, so to speak.
Right, exactly. I would like to get a few more, especially youth. You look at me, yeah, I'm not in the youth scene, but I want to hear them, and I'm looking for males under 30. More immigrant voice would be wonderful.
Okay. Josefa Beyer, journalist and curator of Families Talk, the oral history of the Indianapolis Public Schools, found on the digital collections page from the library's website at indypl.org. Josefa, thank you for joining us, and best of luck in your great project.
Thank you for having me.